Hi everyone, today I'm talking about Trois Dice, which is a 2020 roll and write game by the original designers of the Trois board game. Obviously being a roll and write, this one supports, I think it's up to 10 players it says, but I don't really see any reason why you can't play with more than that. The game probably takes about half an hour to play at most. So the setup of the game, it looks like this. You get this cool wheel board with all these different modular tiles, and you're going to assort these randomly around the outside. And as you can see, you've got the three different colours, as in the original Trois game. You've got the white, the red, and the yellow. And every player is going to have one of these sheets. And obviously, this is going to be how you're going to mark off your actions as the game goes on. So I've already set up here. So what you're going to do is you're going to roll these 4 dice, and you're going to allocate them in chronological order from the lowest to the highest. And if you've got a black dice, that one always goes before the other ones of the same number. Now, the black dice works differently than the other ones because that one essentially says that this action is out of use. So you can put that one to the side. And then simultaneously, all the players can draft one of these or choose one of these dice together, not exclusively, so everybody can do the same one if they wanted to, paying the cost on the wheel. So for example, this one would be free, this red 2, but the red 3 would cost 1 and the yellow 6 would cost 2. And as you can see, you start with some basic resources. For example, you start with these 3 flags, which let you mitigate the pip values. You've got the coins here, which obviously lets you buy new dice based on these values there. And you've got the Bibles, when if you cash in 2 of those, you can actually change the whole colour of the die. And the reason you want to be selecting these dice is obviously based on the sheet here. So you've got the red ones. I should have said as well, this sheet should already be filled in from 1 to 6 on these numbers, at least for the first game. And then from then on, you can kind of mess with that a bit. But and then these ones here, the red ones, say I took this red 3, and my 3 was here, I would basically draw around this building here, and that would basically stop all these buildings from being demolished, as I'll explain in a bit. And additionally, you get one of these yellow men, which you tick off on your sheet down here, which are basically pure points at the end of the game. And as you can see from the sheet, if you ever get a whole column of these men, then you can get a little bonus, such as, you know, more flags, money, Bibles, or additional buildings. So that's one of the red buildings. The second one basically just lets you have the 2 men, and if you have both sides of these, you get the ones in the middle as well. You've got the yellow buildings, which gives you stuff based on the current board state. So for example, if I took that yellow 6 there, and let's say this number was this one was a 6, then it would say for every red dice I'd get two red workers. So going 2 red dice, I'd get 4 yellow workers, or red workers, sorry. Again, these ones just give you pure men for the sake of the scoring at the bottom. And the white ones are quite interesting because the white ones actually dictate what you're going to be scoring at the end of the game. So for example, for the first white one I ticked off, I might say, let's say I took this one. I would draw around this building saying I've got that worker, and that would give me a multiplier of ×1 for that building type. So you'd look at the man here, and then you'd look at the corresponding symbol here, and put a 1 there. And basically, at the end of the game, for every one of these buildings I've got ticked off, I'd get a point. But as the game develops, the first 2 you tick off are only worth 1 point, the second 2 are worth 2 points, and the third pair are worth 3 points. So the longer you wait, the bigger the multipliers you can get for your endgame scoring. But as the game develops, so after the first and second round, the third round, as you can see, it starts showing this symbol here. And that means that wherever the black dice lands, that's, they say it landed here, so it would be a 5 red, then all the 5 reds would be crossed off unless you have the corresponding fort to protect you from doing so. And that's basically going to be how the game plays out. So you're going to keep going for 8 rounds, and those 8 rounds are divided into 2 halves. You've got kind of a day phase and a night phase, but essentially they work just the same. So you've got 16 drafts, trying to get as many combos and stuff as you can, you know, manipulating the dice, getting these bonuses, trying to get these bonuses here, and trying to get your multipliers at the end of the game. So Scoring's obviously going to work for those there. You've got your every 2 flags gets you a point, every 2 coins gets you a point, every 2 Bibles gets you a point, and then you're going to add up all your men you've ticked off and all the score multipliers and get your final score there. So I hope that little how to play video gave you at least an insight about how the game actually plays out. And as you can see, it's quite a bit different to a lot of roll and write designs out there. Now, roll and write games aren't something that particularly enthuse me, but as soon as the game has the name TWAR on it, I'm definitely going to at least check it out. But yeah, this one is quite out there in the way it plays. It does stretch you in quite a few different directions, because if you want to score points, you have to be broad, but you also have to be quite tunnel visioned as well. And that might be a bit of a contradiction there, but because of the way that you actually score, the different rows, you actually have to focus on not only triggering them all in order to get those high multipliers in terms of getting those ×3s. You have to focus on one of those rows as well in order to get the most out of that. So you've got to kind of dilute yourself in areas that you aren't too focused on in order to stretch yourself out at the end of the game to get those big multipliers. At the same time, obviously the black dice is going to be starting to smash down those different regions in order to fight against you to stop you scoring those different things. So it's almost like this push your luck mechanism in order to get or to squeeze every point out of a row, which is quite interesting because you can go absolutely balls out and hope to get the most points and not to suffer from those black dice, or you can choose to really play it safe and focus on fortifying all those different columns. So yeah, it's quite interesting in that sense, and it's a real game you have to play for yourself. And I think playing it repeated times is going to help you get your head around how to actually squeeze points out of it. Because I think the first time I played this one, I was a bit kind of just going with the flow, and it didn't serve me well at all, because you really do have to understand how the game comes together, and I said, in order to actually do well at it. Because the point scoring is just a bit different to everything else out there. But in that same vein, that makes the decision making quite interesting. And at first it can feel like, that's just, I'll just tick off all these yellows and get all these guys. But if you're doing that, then you're actually not scoring the multipliers from the other way of scoring. So you can focus on full-on tunnel vision on terms of getting all those different, getting all the different men, which is obviously going to give you pure points. But at the same time, if the black dice keep smashing you and taking all those spots, then you're completely cutting your legs off, really. So you've got to be open-minded in terms of having to kind of divert your strategy if you're not too far committed. But at the same time, be committed if the other pools of points are starting to get diluted. So it's a hard game to explain. But once you play it, and after you start getting your head around the game and how it flows, then it really is enjoyable. And I have to say, the more and more I'm playing this one, the more and more I'm enjoying it. And the interesting thing as well, all the different routes you can go down seem to be pretty well balanced. I mean, I've done well off scoring all the different men and getting the bonuses that way, and I've done well off scoring off the huge multipliers based on a certain criteria, or kind of a more widespread strategy. So yeah, I like the fact there's different routes down, or routes that can play out, but at the same time, from game to game, you can't just follow the same path, because the black dice is going to affect the game in a very different way from game to game. So that's really interesting. And that kind of fresh mechanism is something that's really kind of hooked me, and I do really enjoy that. Time investment as well. I mean, there's only 8 rounds in the game. Each of those rounds is split into 2, so technically you're going to get 16 dice picks. And those dice picks are really crucial, because not only are you trying to get your scoring points out of it, you're trying to fortify your things out of it, but you need to have that all those mitigation tools at your to be able to use in terms of actually getting the dice you want with the coins, or swapping the colours of the dice with the Bibles, or even changing the pip values with the flags. So you've got to have that constant flow of resources available to you in order to actually get a lot out of your turns. Otherwise, you're going to be very much at the mercy of the dice rolls themselves. Again, another thing to weigh up. Of course, you could be fortunate and just get the rolls that you need, but at the same time, everybody's getting the same. So, in terms of balance, you can't complain that somebody's got a luckier roll than you have, because everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet. And player interaction wise, there is none really. This is a completely multiplayer solo game, and playing it by yourself or playing it with other players is not going to have any impact on the game at all, which is something you're either going to like or you're going to hate, to be honest. It doesn't bother me perfectly at all personally, because I know what I'm getting into when I play a game like this. Yeah, so time investment wise, great. I mean, in terms of, you know, quite a meaty game, lots of decisions to, you know, to rack your brain about in a 20-minute game is great. I think the box itself says it takes a bit longer than that, but personally, I think every game I've played has taken 20 minutes to, 25 minutes, half an hour maximum, which is really nice. Uptime as well is great. I mean, you can play, everyone can play at the same time. As I said, because there's no interaction and the dice are available to everybody, you don't actually physically manipulate the dice. You can just do everything on your own accord and play at the same time. So you're not really waiting for other players at all, which is great. The aesthetic of the game as well, I think it's pretty clear what everything is. I mean, it's nice and nice and simple to understand, I think, the sheet itself. I mean, I suppose initially it's a bit overwhelming, but once you actually realise there's not actually that much you can do with your dice, or that many options, although these options are important, it's not like throwing a bunch of different things at you, just bombarding you with information. So that's really cool. The component quality is fantastic, I think. I love that central wheel that rotates around and obviously changes the price of all the dice and stuff. But the dice themselves, the big transparent ones, are fantastic. I love the look of those. I love that the way they actually, the colour of those dice is dictated by the actual tile beneath it, rather than the dice itself. That makes things really cool and interesting. And obviously the board state itself is constantly in flux as the black dice flips the tiles over, changing the colour from round to round. Theme-wise, it's about as thematic as Troyes, if not less. It's very much a skin. It doesn't really make a lot of sense thematically, but it works absolutely fine. And setup and teardown time is nothing to it, so that's really cool. Just give every player a sheet, and you can pretty much get going by rolling the dice. I think with a lot of roll and write games, the progression is really well done. In terms of this one, it feels like you are triggering a lot of different things as the game goes on. For example, you might circle one of those things which let you, and you've got the other one on the other side, so you get the ones in the middle, which gets you more men. That more men might give you complete a column of different, red, white, and yellow men, which gets you another bonus. So there's got that real kind of chain reaction element to it, which you really want from a roll and write game. I think without that, roll and writes fall a bit flat, and it's all about those combos for me. And Troyes Dice does that really well. And scalability, it's said completely multiplayer solitaire, so it makes no difference whether you're playing this with 1 player or 10 players. The only thing is how many people can physically see the dice. So as long as everybody can see, you can play with as many people as you want with no issues whatsoever. And comparison-wise, I can't really think of too much that I can compare this to. Obviously, as I said, it's got all those roll and write tropes in terms of the the synergies and all the chain reactions, but it still feels very different, and I do like that. While the namesake or Troyes is very much there's not really much DNA that shares with the board game version. It still has somewhat of the feel of being not nasty, but the fact that the game fights against you like the black dice do against in the board game is quite interesting, and that familiarity does shine through a little bit. But I think the Troyes name really just is about the artwork and the visual aspect of it. But it does have the same designers. Obviously they do see similarities between the two, but it could have been anything really. But yeah, overall, as I said, the more I play this game, the more I'm enjoying it. I think it's definitely up there with the best roll and write games out there, such as your Ganchon Clevers, your Cartographers. This one is equally as good as those. And initially I heard some mixed reactions about Troyes Dice. I'm not sure if that's because people were expecting a dice version of the board game. This one it's not that. It is very different to that. A lot lighter, but still very satisfying. But yeah, I personally really enjoyed this one. It's definitely a game you can whip out by yourself and play quickly, a really good solo game. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to playing it more and more going forward. And as I said, it's just fun, and it's got a kind of a meatier feel to it, or a good level of complexity crammed into a 20-minute game, which is always a good thing. So that concludes my my review of Trois Dice. Definitely gets a seal of quality for me. Enjoyed this one, and as I said, the more I play it, the more I'm enjoying it. So if you have enjoyed the review, please hit like and subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.